بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. Welcome back everyone to our reading of this great book of Islam, the Risala of Imam al-Qushayri rahimahullah. Picking up where we left off, we will begin on page 48 inshallah. قال المصنف رحمه الله ونفعنا بعلومه في الدارين آمين. So the author says, may Allah Ta'ala have mercy on him and may we benefit from his knowledge in this world and in the next. Abu Muhammad Ruwaym ibn Ahmad. He was born in Baghdad, a great Sufi master. He died in the year 303. He was a teacher of the Quran and a jurist who adhered to the school of Dawood al-Zahiri. This is the Zahiri madhab, which is not a very popular madhab, but at one point in time it had several followers. Ruwaym said, the wisdom of the wise man consists of dispensing freely pious admonitions to his Sufi brethren, while at the same time imposing them stringently upon himself. His dispensation of admonitions to other means adherence to religious knowledge, while his stringent imposition of them upon himself is evidence of pious scrupulosity. So, of course, we have a obligation as Muslims in general to enjoin the good and forbid the evil, al-amr bil ma'ruf wa nahy an munkar. But it's important that when we advise people that we are gentle and that we have rahmah, but actually before even all of that, you have to have knowledge. You have to make sure that what you are advising is actually correct. And because we have a plurality of legal opinions in Islam, usually we can find an excuse for somebody. But when it comes to yourself, you're going to be a little bit more strict. That's what he's saying. Rather than being lenient, you'll be lenient with others, but strict on yourself. I heard Sheikh Abdurrahman As-Sulami, may Allah Ta'ala have mercy on him, say, I heard Abdul Wahid ibn Bakr say, I heard Abu Abdullah ibn Khafif say, I asked Ruwaym to give me a piece of advice, and he answered, this affair is achieved only by exerting one's spirit. If you enter through this, fine. If not, then you should not engage in the follies of the Sufis. So beginning right versus beginning right versus beginning wrong. I just want to look up one thing in the translation. Ahmed. Okay. Ruwaym said, when you keep company with any group of people, this is better for you than keeping company with the Sufis. This is because all people study the externals of religion, whereas the Sufi community studies the true realities of things. While all people seek to impose upon themselves the outward rulings of the divine law, the Sufis impose upon themselves true reality of pious scrupulosity and continuous sincerity. Therefore, if anyone deviates from them in something that they have achieved, God will remove the light of the faith from his heart. So it's funny, a lot of the warnings about hanging out with the people of Tasawwuf and studying Tasawwuf actually comes from the people of Tasawwuf themselves. Because of this is serious stuff. This is very, very high stakes because it involves people's constant invocation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and nearness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So to study something of that magnitude and then to veer away from it is to, veer away almost into destruction. So, as he said, as his advice is. So it's only for those who have already committed to the external acts of worship and that they are constant in that. Ruwaym said, I was walking in a street of Baghdad during a hot afternoon. I was thirsty and I came across a house and asked for water. A girl with a pitcher opened the door. When she saw me, she said, this is a Sufi who drinks during the day. Since then, I have never broken my fast during the day. Meaning, oh, you're not fasting? I thought all Sufis fast and they're just always praying, etc. Ruwaym said, God has bestowed upon you word and deed. If he takes away from you the word and leaves you with the deed, this is a blessing. If he takes away from you the deed and leaves you with the word, this is an affliction. However, if he takes away both, this is a terrible punishment. So we're not necessarily focused about what we're saying when we're studying tasawwuf, but what we're doing. That's what matters. So you don't always have to talk about it, as you said. But if the speech is gone and the action is there, that's good because then you're constant. If vice versa, that's obviously highly problematic and hypocritical. And if both of them are gone, then you're even further along in the negative. Okay, Abu Abdullah Muhammad ibn al-Fadl al-Balkhi. He was a resident of Samarkand, originally from Balkh. He was expelled from Balkh and settled in Samarkand where he died. He studied with Ahmed Khadraway and others. Abu Uthman al-Hirri liked him a lot and he died in the year 319. Al-Hiri, it's Al-Hiri, not Al-Hiri, Al-Hiri. He died in the year 319. I heard Sheikh Abu Abdurrahman al-Sulami, may God have mercy on him, say. I heard Ahmed ibn Muhammad al-Farra say. I heard Abu Bakr ibn Uthman say. Abu Uthman al-Hirri wrote a letter to Muhammad ibn Fadl asking him about the signs of wretchedness in the hereafter. He answered 3 things. When a man is endowed with knowledge but deprived of deeds. When he is endowed with deeds but deprived of sincerity in performing them. And when he is endowed with the company of the righteous, yet he has no respect for them. So that's kind of the state that we are in, unfortunately. People that know are not doing what needs to be done. People that do don't have that ikhlas, don't have that sincerity. And when we are in the company of the righteous, we have no respect for them. I think that's really probably one of the largest problems that we have, is this lack of respect for the ulama and the awliya today. And you see a lot of that online, people attacking each other and attacking each other without knowledge and things like that. Abu Uthman al-Hirri used to say Muhammad ibn Fadl is a broker of men. I mean, he just kind of like, he had that talent, he could really change people. I heard Muhammad ibn al-Hussein say, I heard Abdullah al-Razi say, I heard Muhammad ibn al-Fadl say, rest in the prison is something that a soul should desire. Because if you're in prison, whether it's an actual prison or kind of like a self-isolation, then you've shut physically, you've shut the door to all of the social interactions and the things of this dunya that you have. I mean, it was Sidna Yusuf alayhi salam himself who said, Ya Rabbi al-sijnu ahabbu ilayya mimma yad'unani ilay. So, prison is better for me than what they are calling me to do. I heard Muhammad ibn al-Hussein say, I heard Abu Bakr al-Razi say, I heard Muhammad ibn al-Fadl say, there are 4 reasons for Islam's departure. Number 1 is Muslims do not act in accordance with what they know. They act in accordance with what they do not know. They do not learn what they do not know, and they prevent others from learning. Right? So this is a religion and a way of knowledge. It's a thinking person's religion, as we've commented on before. According to the same chain of transmission, he said, How strange are those who cross the desert in order to arrive at His house, Allah's house, and to see the traces of prophecy. Why don't they cross their lower souls and their passions in order to arrive at their hearts and to see the signs of the Lord's? May He be exalted. May He great and exalted. So the way, through is by conquering one's lower self. He said, when you see a Sufi novice, somebody who's just beginning the journey, who aspires to good things of this world, this means that he has turned his back on God. So, in the beginning of the path, there is a lessening of things, as we will come to see when we're done with this second chapter, or introductory chapter. There's usually a lessening of things. So, one of them is the lessening of worldly matters. They usually say a lessening of food, drink, sleep, social intercourse, social interaction, etc. So he's like, if you see somebody who's starting and they have the opposite, then they're moving in the wrong direction. Someone asked him about asceticism, and he answered, when one looks at this world and sees only its imperfection, and when one turns away from it with pride, dignity, and contempt. So if you, depending on how you see the world, will be your disposition towards it, obviously, and worldly things. A lot of people, a lot of what's happening in our lives is that we have artificial structures that have been set up around us to domesticate us, to control us, to influence us, um, to uh, to keep us distracted from what's really out there, which is, as he says, an imperfect world. So people, if you put your trust in those artificial constructs, you are going to be led to a great disappointment. However, the zahid, the ascetic, the person who only sees Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Of course, sometimes some of these artificial constructs we can't live without. So don't misunderstand what I'm saying. I'm not saying that we have to be like rebels and no, I mean, but you need to be aware of them. You need to be aware that they're artificial constructs and that there's imperfection in it. So yeah, there's a lot of contradictions in our society. There's a lot of contradictions in governance. There's a lot of contradictions in how justice is dealt with unequally towards people, so on and so forth. So you have to acknowledge that. If you acknowledge that, then that means you're aware of the structure and its imperfection, and then therefore it gives you room to put your trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's, I like that statement very much. If you do that, if you're able to critically look at these structures as basically man-made and therefore imperfect, then that's a sign that you're not really putting your trust in them, that you have some zuhud, you have some asceticism towards that. You're not giving it your heart and your mind and your soul, etc. You're able to renounce, it's your attachment to it. And that act of renouncing is what is needed in the spiritual path. Abu Bakr Ahmed ibn Nasr al-Zaqqaq al-Kabir. He was a contemporary of Imam al-Junayd, rahimahullah, and a great Sufi master of Egypt. I heard Muhammad ibn Hussein, may God have mercy on him, say, I heard al-Hussein ibn Ahmed say, I heard al-Qattani say, when al-Zaqqaq died, the poor no longer had reason to visit Egypt. So the poor here, usually they refer to it as al-Fuqara. And al-Fuqara, in the Arabic, it's al-Fuqara. It's the plural of faqir, of poor, but al-fuqara is the way that we refer to the people of tasawwuf. And I think I've mentioned this before, that even in normal Arabic, you usually wouldn't refer to yourself. Like if I gave you something, I wouldn't say this is from me. I would say, هذا من الفقير. This is from the impoverished one or the poor one, which means me. So it's like rude to refer to yourself as me, just in normal Arabic discourse. So the people of Tasawwuf, taking this seriously. Either we call them al-qawm, the people, or al-ta'ifa, as we say. Imam al-Junayd is Imam al-ta'ifa, the leader of the people or the group. Or more frequently is this word al-fuqara, those who are poor, meaning poor to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to vis-a-vis Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in the beginning of tasawwuf, around the time period of what we are reading in, there was, as you can see, they were physically without. They might even have been misconstrued at some point for beggars. I think one of the translations will see that, because of how they dressed, and they just renounced everything, etc., so they can focus solely on their devotional work. So that's what he means, not the poor, like the people that need donations. He means the Sufis. So people would go to Egypt only to visit a Zaqqaq, and when he passed away, then okay, there's no other. There's almost like there's nobody worth seeing in Egypt at that time. Al-Zaqqaq said, whoever does not combine his poverty with piety is eating prohibited food. Right? So the poor person, physically, the materially poor person, can also have a very bad intention, just like the rich person can have a bad intention or a good intention. So it's not about the material have or have not. It's about piety. It's about the ikhlas towards that. Sheikh Abu Abdurrahman al-Sulami, may God have mercy on him, said, I heard Muhammad ibn Abdullah ibn Muhammad ibn Abdullah ibn Abdul Aziz say, I heard a Zaqqaq say, I wandered in the desert of the children of Israel for 15 days, meaning like the Sinai region. However, when I had finally found the road, I met a soldier who gave me some water to drink. Its harshness tormented my heart for the next 30 years. Meaning that he was in a state of complete reliance on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and somebody comes along to give him some material gain, which he took, rather than continuing his reliance on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is pretty intense stuff. I'm just going to go and walk out and wander, and whatever I find, I find. And then, I stumble upon, somebody who's going to give me like a free meal or something like that. It's kind of like too much dunya for that pure state of self-reliance. That's what he's talking. Sometimes it's almost unbelievable that you might not even understand the story, because it's like, what? Isn't the presence of the soldier with the water from the provision that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala provides? That's normally how we would think of things. But he was saying, my heart leaned towards it, and that tormented me for basically the rest of my life. How could I do that? How could I let myself down? How could I not rely on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? That's sort of what's happening. Abu Abdullah Amr ibn Uthman al-Makki. He met Abu Abdullah al-Nabaji and studied with Abu Sa'id al-Kharraz and others. He was a great master of the Sufis and their leader in the science of the fundamentals of divine law and the mystical path. He died in Baghdad in 291. So notice how a lot of these people were, in their biography, it's mentioned that they were trained in the different sciences of Islam. So these aren't just, wandering dervishes, but people that were very well trained. I heard Muhammad ibn Hussein, may God have mercy on him, say, I heard Muhammad ibn Abdullah ibn Shadhan say, I heard Abu Bakr Muhammad ibn Ahmed say, I heard Amr ibn Uthman al-Makki say, whatever good thing, splendor, intimacy, beauty, radiance, form, light, person, or image, which your heart may fancy, which may occur to you in your thoughts, or which may appear in the passing whims of your heart, God Most High is far removed from all of this. Have you not heard the words of God Most High? Like him there is not, he is the hearing and seeing. لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٌ وَهُوَ السَّمِيعُ الْبَصِيرُ. He also said he has not begotten and has not been begotten, and equal to him There is not anyone. لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. So if you go back to the beginning of his biography, and this is why I paused, I just wanted to see the original Arabic, that he was a leader in the science of the fundamentals of divine law. In Arabic, it says that he was a master of usul, and here he means usul al-din, not usul al-fiqh. Usul al-din is theology, aqidah, ilm al-kalam. Usul al-fiqh is a legal science. How do we know that? Because of this quote. This is a quote that is very frequent, that theologians use. Anything that you can think of, Allah is other than that. Because in the early generation, around this time, there emerged these false or these heretical theological beliefs. And one of those heretical theological beliefs, which unfortunately, a problem that kind of still exists, it's not very prevalent, but it does exist, is people that have almost like an anthropomorphic idea of God. They think of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in human terms, having human features. So he's saying in a very beautiful, anything that you can think of, Allah therefore is other than that. And that's a very common theological tool. Okay, he also said he has not begotten. Oh no, I read that. According to the same chain of transmission, he said, knowledge is a guide and fear of God is a caravan driver. The soul, so you need knowledge, okay? For tasawwuf to work, for you to tread the spiritual path, you have to have basic knowledge of Islam. The soul, which is caught between them, is obstinate, recalcitrant, deceitful, and devious. If you keep warning her by the guidance of knowledge and driving her by the thread of fear, you will achieve your goal. He also said, no clear expression can be applied to ecstasy because it is God's mystery amongst the believers. So, this is really beautiful stuff. Just go back to the first quote or the first sentiment about knowledge as a guide and fear is the caravan driver. Sometimes you have to have fear of what awaits you in the hereafter, fear of being judged by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not just all peaches all the time. Sometimes you need a little bit of that fear. Oftentimes you need a little bit, I shouldn't say you, we need that fear to remember, no, I need to sober up and this is serious stuff. You only have one life. So there's nothing wrong with that. Too much of that, it will push people away, will push you away. Why? Because, as he says, your nafs, you have to tame your nafs. And then this thing about an expression about ecstasy. What happens when you almost reach the end of the spiritual path? That's stuff that's difficult to talk about, he's saying, because how do you articulate in language, that which you are experiencing with your entirety? And he will do his best in the rest of the book to talk about some of those things. But there is a point in time in one's spiritual journey where words just don't work anymore. And like what happened beyond Sidrat al-Muntaha in the Isra and the Ma'raj? Okay, we know that there was a dialogue. We know that the Prophet ﷺ was given the prayers, but that's really all we know because of the narrations. We don't know what it was like to see that, to experience that, to be there, because you reach a point where there's just no more words, where it's just about pure being and experiencing. A dhawq, right? There's a taste. You're tasting something. You're experiencing something. Samnun ibn Hamza, his kunya was Abu al-Hasan. So, a kunya is like a nickname. That is either you are the father of, and usually you name your eldest child, or you can just have the nickname abstract. Like my nickname or my kunya is Abu Zayd, because my eldest son is Zayd. And that's actually my kunya. So in some parts of the Muslim world, people prefer to refer to you as by your kunya, um, uh, instead of using your first name or your proper name, as it's a little bit too direct. So instead of somebody saying Tariq, Tariq, Tariq all the time to me, they will say, oh, Abu Zayd. And that would also allow me to address somebody who's uh, senior to me, whether senior to me in rank or knowledge or position or something like that. Like imagine if you like walked into the Khalifa or a Sultan or something like that, instead of having every time to say, oh, your majesty or your royal highness or something like that, you just say, Abu Abdullah. You can be it's a way of being direct, but at the same time showing respect. And like we know, the kunya of the Prophet was Abu Qasim sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. So his kunya was Abu Hassan, uh, though some say it was Abu Qasim. So again, it doesn't necessarily have to be you're actually the father of or the mother of your eldest child. It could be just a name that just becomes you're associated with it. He studied with Asir al-Saqati, rahimahullah, Abu Ahmad al-Qulanisi, Muhammad ibn Ali al-Qassab, and others. It is said that he recited the following lines: I find no delight in anyone but you, meaning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so test me as you wish. As soon as he said that, he was afflicted with urine retention, which is very, very painful. He then began to go around religious schools saying to the students, pray for your uncle the liar. As he was reciting these lines, one of his companions said to the other, I heard the other day when I was in the courtyard, or the countryside, afwan, the voice of our master Samnun that begged and humbly entreated God to cure him. The other man said, I too heard that yesterday when I was in such and such place. Others confirmed this also. Samnun was told about this. However, when he was afflicted by urine retention, he tolerated it patiently and never complained. When he heard them saying this, while in fact he had never uttered the prayer or said anything about this, he realized that God wanted him to show his anguish out of respect for the code of God's servant and in order to conceal his true state. It was then that he began to walk around the schools, telling the school children, pray for your uncle, the liar. Okay, this is again really high stuff. I mean, it's almost like kind of almost impossible to believe that someone would do something like this. But these are natural spiritual states that these people had. So he's like, Allah, the light of poetry, I only want you, you can test me the way you want. So Allah tested him with this great affliction. So you have to man up and suffer silently because that is your spiritual way. I mean, alhamdulillah, that's not how we would do it. We would take the easy way out by seeking help and please help me, I'm dying, I need this affliction to go. But the people at this time, this was their resolve. Their spiritual resolve was rock solid. So even when for whatever reason people started spreading this, it's a rumor that he's asking for help, he doesn't want any help other than pure reliance on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Again, and I've said this in the beginning and I'll repeat this every so often, when we read these types of stories, the point is not to take this actual story and do it yourself. No, this can only come from a pure, natural expression and spiritual disposition. The point of the story is to show us the type of spiritual resolve these people had. You, me, we will have our own experience with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So don't take the story. It's not like the sunnah. Like, oh, this happened, therefore I have to go do it. That's different. When we read the sunnah, read the hadith of the Prophet, that's what we do. We actually follow it. This is to show us what can happen when you have unwavering, unshakable dedication to and reliance on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I heard Muhammad al-Hussein, may God have mercy on him, say, I heard Abu Abbas Muhammad ibn Hassan al-Baghdadi say, I heard Ja'far al-Khuldi say, Ahmad ibn al-Maghazili told me, there was a man in Baghdad who distributed 40,000 dinars amongst the poor. Samnun said to me, Abu Ahmad, don't you see that this man has expended and done? while we have nothing to give as charity. Let's go home, let's go someplace and perform there one ritual bending and prostration, one rak'ah, one unit of prayer for each dirham he has donated. So he came to Al Madain and performed 40,000 rak'at. Samnun had a pleasant character, and most of his sayings are about divine love. He was a person of great stature. They say that he died before Imam al-Junayd, rahimahullah. Abu Ubaid al-Busri. He belonged to the generation of old Sufi masters and studied with Abu Turab al-Nakhshabi, who his translation came earlier. I heard Muhammad ibn Hussein, may God have mercy on him, say. I heard Abdullah ibn Ali say. I heard Ad-Duqi say. I heard Ibn al-Jalla, Jalla or Jalla? Al-Jalla, Al-Jalla say. I have met 600 Sufi masters. Of them, no one was equal to the following four: the Nun al-Misri, my father, Abu Turab, and Abu Ubaid al-Busri. I heard Sheikh Abdurrahman al-Sulami, may God have mercy on him, say. I heard Ahmed ibn Muhammad al-Baghawi say. I heard Muhammad ibn Muammar say. I heard Abu Zurra al-Hasani say. One day, Abu Ubaid was threshing his wheat on a threshing machine. So he's like working his land. It was just 3 days before the pilgrimage season. Two men came to him and asked, Abu Ubaid, do you wish or do you desire to perform the Hajj? And he said, no. And he then turned to me and said, this master of yours is more capable of doing this than these men. He meant himself. Okay, so he's working his land, and there's still 3 days. So it's probably like the 5th or the 6th of Dhul Hijjah, depending on when you determine you have to get there. I guess the latest you can get there is the 9th, the day of Arafah. And he's in Baghdad, right? So he's quite a distance away. And he gets this opportunity to perform the Hajj. And he turns them down. Well, why does he turn them down? Because he has the obligation now to till the land, to take care of his crops, and that's the wajib, that's the obligation that he is currently engaged in. And he sees that that is more meritorious than performing the Hajj, because that's where Allah Ta'ala had placed him at that moment. And his comment to the student who's narrating the story is, had I wanted to, I would be able to go to the Hajj quickly, despite the distance between Baghdad and Mecca, because from his miracles, they call it Tayy al-Zaman or Tayy al-Makan, that he's able to bend time and space. And there are stories of some of the awliya who have been able to do that, cross great distances in short amount of time, be in multiple places at the same time, etc. So the wording of the story is a little bit obscure. You kind of need to pause a little bit to think about it. So he divulged to his students that he has this miraculous ability. Sometimes a sheikh will divulge a secret to a student for purposes of teaching or making their iman more firm, etc. And he's saying, despite my ability to do that, I'm still not going to go to the Hajj, because this is where Allah Ta'ala has placed me. Being where Allah Ta'ala has placed you is one of the hardest things, because the grass is always greener on the other side. We always want the other. We always think it's better over there. It's better if I do this. The hardest thing is just to be where you are and keep your head down and do what's been asked of you by the circumstance. Abu al-Fawaris Shah ibn Shuja al-Kirmani. He came from a family of kings. So his nobility, royalty. He studied with Abu Turab al-Nakhshabi, Abu Ubaid al-Busri, and those who belonged to this generation. He was a man of futuwa and of great importance. He died before the year 300. We talked about futuwa before. It's kind of like a code of chivalry. Shah said, pious scrupulosity is a sign of fear of God and avoidance of suspicious things. So if you have zuhud, then not only that's what, and I told you I don't like the word scrupulosity, but I mean, I guess that's how it is in the book. It's translated, so I'm not going to keep correcting it every time. It's just too much. But the thing about having zuhud is that you end up avoiding suspicious things because your heart is not leaning towards the dunya, it's leaning towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if your heart leans towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's kind of like a self-defense mechanism. You're not going to end up wanting to do things that are suspicious because why compromise your relationship with Allah ta'ala? He used to say to his companions, avoid lies, treachery, and backbiting, then do as you see fit. I heard Sheikh Abdurrahman As-Sulami say, I heard my grandfather Ibn Nujayd say, Shah al-Kirbani said, whoever turns his sight away from the prohibited restrains himself from passions. So if you lower your gaze, then you're able to control your sexual desires. And then you fill your interior with constant scrutiny, and your exterior with the observance of the Prophet's custom, his sunnah, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and force yourself to eat only properly obtained food, you will never fail in having clairvoyance. So having a clarity of spiritual thought and a spiritual vision comes from that advice. The thing about observance of the sunnah, and I've mentioned this before, the people of tasawwuf were always the most strict when it came to observance of the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, and there's a strong overlap between tasawwuf and the study of hadith itself. So many of the people of tasawwuf were people of hadith as well, out of that love and dedication and devotion to the Prophet ﷺ. Okay, I will do two more, so we can then turn to the community. Yusuf ibn al-Hussein, he was a Sufi master of Ar-Ray and a province of Jibal. He was unique in his avoidance of pretension. He was knowledgeable and well educated. He studied with Dhanun al-Misri and Abu Turab al-Nakhshabi and a friend of Abu Sa'd al-Kharraz. He died in the year 304. Yusuf ibn Hussein said, I would rather meet God burdened with all possible sins than with one grain of pretense. You know, anything is better than having a little bit of arrogance, no matter how enormous the sin, which is a big statement. Because if you think about what kind of sins people can get involved in, that's pretty serious. Or showing off or something like that. And that's why I say arrogance, because it kind of summarizes what would happen with pretense. Yusuf ibn Hussein said, when you see a novice having recourse to dispensations from an obligatory requirement, you must know that nothing good will come of him. So the people that begin the spiritual path, this is not the time to take what we call rukhas, or legal dispensations. Oh, I know in this madhab they allow this, so I'm going to do it, it's easier. That's not the way of the novice. The person that begins and that's in the beginning of the path, they're stricter on themselves. They will follow the stricter opinion to help tame the nafs. And usually the sheikh, under whose supervision they are, will instruct them accordingly. He wrote to Al-Junayd, may God not allow you to taste the temptation of your soul. For once you have tasted it, you will never taste any good forthwith. Yusuf ibn Hussein said, I see afflictions of the Sufis in the following things: seeking friendship with adolescents, keeping company with adversaries, and befriending women. So these type of relationships can cause you to swerve away from the goal on the spiritual path. The gender thing particularly, I should say, you know, especially in our day and age, and especially for people that are younger and beginning their spiritual path, this could have a negative effect. I mean, just think about high school and all of the guy-girl stuff that we went through when we were in high school. I mean, it's really, really distracting. Very, very distracting. Okay, last one for today. Abu Abdullah Muhammad ibn Ali at-Tirmidhi. He was a great Sufi master and he wrote many works on the Sufi sciences. He studied with Abu Turab al-Nakhshabi Ahmad ibn Khadraway ibn al-Jalla, and others. Someone asked Muhammad ibn Ali about the characteristic features of mankind, and he answered, outward weakness, yet ultimate, yet unlimited pretensions. Muhammad ibn Ali said, I have not written a single letter about the divine providence in relation to my own condition. However, when any personal circumstances have strained, I found consolation in it, and in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's decree. And here we will come to a pause in today's class. Wallahu ta'ala a'la wa a'lam wa sallallahu ala sayyidina wa mawlana Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Questions, comments, concerns? So I think we have about.
Assalamualaikum, Imam Rifai. Imam Tarek, Assalamualaikum.
Alaykum assalam.
So I don't have a question, but I want to remind you about the email, please. The email.
Yes,
Yeah,
I
thank
was
you.
traveling, so yes, I will get to it.
Thank you.
Actually, on my little to-do list, I'm going to write that down before I forget. We have about 20 pages left of these biographies, and then we're actually going to then start the book. So the first chapter was a chapter about Aqidah, basic belief. And then the second chapter is a chapter which we're currently in, which is the biography of all of the main people that he's going to end up quoting from in the rest of the book, and form sort of the authoritative early generation of the science of and discipline of tasawwuf. So that's important. But then it's a drop in the bucket compared to the rest of the book is actually the book. That's what we're going to. So we have about 20 pages, so maybe 2-3 more classes of that, and then we'll get into the book, inshallah. Also, before I forget, I think we have a session on Tuesday, the Q&A, our Q&A session. I don't remember off the top of my head what time that is, but it's going to be in our weekly emails. Oh, it's also 8:15 p.m. Tuesday, the 29th of April at 8:15 p.m. You can send questions to support@iccpmd.org. I should also mention that I have a lot of questions from the last session. I've been like traveling with that document everywhere just in case we are able to schedule it. So alhamdulillah, we're able to schedule it. So I'm actually going to start with the old questions. And there's a lot. There's like maybe 40 of the old questions. So send questions, but I might not be able to get to all of them. And then we'll have another one hopefully at the end of May. And I hope by the time we get to the next Eid, I will have caught up with all of the questions. Okay. Anybody have any questions, anything they want to ask about what we read tonight, or anything related to the subject that we're studying?
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, Shaykh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Quick question. When you mentioned about that you at early stage of seeking knowledge and this Sufi orders working towards it, we should not pick and choose that, okay, I can take it from this fiqh or the other fiqh, correct?
Yeah, I mean, generally speaking, that's the case. Yeah, when you start, you're going to follow a stricter way for yourself, but never impose that strict way on somebody else. So you can't think, oh, I'm doing the better thing because I'm following the stricter opinion than all of these other people. That's to have arrogance, to see that you're better. So that would be the haram. I mean, that would be the wrong thing to do. But for yourself in general, yes, when you come to your personal ibadat, personal practice, in the beginning, it's safer and it's better to follow a stricter way.
So the question I have is that person like who have grown up or grown around Ahnaf or with the Hanafi madhab, but then you have a sheikh or a teacher you follow. That teacher would probably be another madhab. So what is the best way? Should a person leave what he have been practicing since childhood and follow what sheikh is guiding or what he's practicing because he is a sheikh?
No, you follow the madhab that you know and that you have access to. So if you grow up Hanafi or Maliki or whatever, and that's what you know, then that's what you follow. and then the sheikh should be able to help guide you within that. If you have a question about that specific madhab or a specific kind of legal issue, then that's also the role of the sheikh in general. No, you don't have to follow the madhab of your sheikh in fiqh. That is, that's, I mean, the people that we're reading about, they had all sorts of different madhab. That's completely fine. I mean, Imam Junaid, Imam Abdul Qadir al-Jilani, I mean, they were all, these were people of high, caliber of ijtihad when it came to the legal sciences. Now, you don't have to follow the same madhab as your sheikh.
And lastly, the follow-up question is this. This actually someone just asked me like a month ago, but I have never got back to them because I have no answer. So I want to confirm this. So this person asked me that he go and he follow Imam Abu Hanifa, and he says that his most of his family they're either Maliki or Shafi'i. He says when I see any problem or any issue I face, I just go by the most lenient view in any of the madhab. He doesn't stick to Imam Abu Hanifa. What would be the position in this sense? This actually is very common because nowadays people say, "Oh, we don't have to stick to one fiqh. Why we need a fiqh? We can follow any of these imam if all these four are righteous."
So in general, for the general Muslim, what you're saying is correct. As long as there's a valid legal opinion, then you can follow that legal opinion, and we cannot criticize one another for following those valid legal opinions. Here we are talking about something else. We're talking about for people that are engaged in the spiritual path, taking the spiritual path seriously. That's different. In that scenario, you can't do that in the beginning. In the beginning, it is better and safer to follow the more difficult way for the reasons that we mentioned. So keep in mind that we are talking about two separate things. So for the people that want to engage in tasawwuf and work on tazkiyah, etc., for that to have effect, for that to bear fruit, then in the beginning of that, you are not going to do what you just said. You're not going to just follow the most lenient thing, because then you are communicating to your nafs, it's okay, you can follow the easy way out, it's okay. In the beginning of the spiritual path, that's not the time to do that. You need to tell your nafs the opposite. You need to tell the nafs, okay, now it's time to work out the rust, to be a little bit more difficult, toughen up, etc., so that you build that spiritual resilience. But in general, and the way that we conduct, for example, when people in our community, when people have questions, I always give the lenient position, because that's the goal, or the MO of the Mufti, is to help people keep their practice where it is. So do you see how they're two separate issues?
Yes, yes. Now it makes sense. Alhamdulillah.
Okay.
Jazakumullah khair.
Yeah. Anybody else?
Salam, Dr. Tarek.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Sometimes we are conflicted between what is meant by sheikh and what is meant by mufti. So that there is no confusion, could you kindly clarify?
So the title of sheikh is simply the title given to a teacher, a guide, somebody who helps provides instruction on various disciplines. So if you go to study tajweed with somebody, then that's your sheikh of tajweed. If you go to study grammar with somebody, that's your sheikh in grammar or nahu, so on and so forth. And likewise, if you go to somebody who guides you in the discipline of tasawwuf and helps you through that, then that is your sheikh of tasawwuf. So that's what the word sheikh, how it's used in Islamic discourse. The mufti is a more specific role, which is a type of proficiency within the legal discipline. So the first stage in proficiency in the legal discipline is to be a jurist, is to be a faqih, somebody who studied fiqh, both the points of law and usul al-fiqh, the methodology of jurisprudence. And then those people that are a little bit further than that, that is the position of a mufti, where the mufti is able to give you a non-binding legal position based on a current issue that you are facing. So right now, such and such happened. What should I do, or how should I deal with the situation? Now, in the process of ifta, the mufti needs to be able to understand the not only their school of thought, not only their legal school, but also all of the schools as it pertains to this particular issue. And then they need to also understand the particular issue that they're dealing with. So they need to know time, place, person, and circumstance of the issue that's in front of them, and then bring those two things together and provide them with a non-binding legal position, which is called, that's what a fatwa is. It's a non-binding legal position. Whereas the judge, the legal position of the judge is binding. So that's what a mufti does. So to hear questions and to have the qualifications to be able to link the plurality of legal opinions within Islam to the current predicament that is before them. And of course, in the process of ifta, there are different grades of muftis. So some muftis are only the mufti of their school of thought. Some muftis are more general, that are able to do, as I said, so more than their school of thought. And the process of ifta is to exercise the methodology of ijtihad. That's what ijtihad is. Ijtihad is to use the tools of the interpretive methodology, the tools laid out in usul al-fiqh, and to exert your effort. That's what ijtihad is, to exert effort to go back to the Quran and Sunnah with those tools and see if you can derive a solution to help the person that's in front of you. So a mufti is a more specific role than a sheikh of a discipline. I hope that was clear.
Thank you. As you know, we've been discussing with you a service, a mufti service to the community at large, and it'll be pretty unique for us to provide that service in ICCP, and we're looking forward to this. And that clarification is very important, because we need to also show, or at least explain, what differentiates us and the service from general guidance that a sheikh would give.
Yes, there has to be some public education, which falls on me. I have to, inshallah.
Yes.
And as Brother Mohsen alluded to, I have formed, or in the process of forming this capacity. I have unfortunately just been very swamped with a lot of other little things, work-related things and travel. But it's on my. So I have this little card that I walk around with that has all of my long-term and short-term to-do list things. So this is very much on top. Inshallah, hopefully by the next Eid, the community will see the results of what we're talking about. But yes, I mean, it's a service that I've, alhamdulillah, been providing since the beginning for ICCP, but it really has been kind of without a proper form, but the function has been there. So the public forum of asking questions, and the way I answer your questions, believe it or not, it follows a very specific methodology. And this is the fatwa service that is provided. But only one of the fatwa services. There are other services that Islamic legal services that can be provided as well, such as arbitration, legal services, marriage and divorce, inheritance, those kind of things, which I have engaged in somewhat, not as much as the public forum of answering questions. And inshallah, I plan to formalize that in the very near future. And then come back to the community to sort of explain, as I just did now, but in a maybe more concise manner, what are these different positions? Because I think Brother Mohsen's right. Some people just don't know. Maybe I just assume, but yes, sometimes people don't know what is exactly a mufti or a sheikh or a qadi or something like that. So inshallah, we'll be working on that.
Thank you very much, Brother Tarek. Now that you're online, let me ask you a question which someone asked me during a recent janaza that we had. we had a janazah where after the janazah, one of the bereaved family got very upset because she wanted to see the face of the person who had been shrouded. And for various reasons, due to the pressure of time, we said, unless there is a request in advance from the family, we would normally not open the casket and show the face. In this case, there was no advance request. And in the last few minutes, this issue came up. And we said, well, if the family really wants to see it, then we can make arrangements, but it was too late at that time. This is a Ask Dr. Tarek question, but I just wanted to put that up because it was so real. It happened last week. And I would like you to either comment now or when we meet on Tuesday.
So, I mean, we've had this issue before. It seems to be a reoccurring thing. And I don't know the origin of it. I don't know if there's a cultural thing, some Islamic cultures or some other cultures in general think like this, but this is not the first time this has happened. So we said in the past that it is permissible, obviously, to see the deceased because at some point they're alive and they're dead, so then you're looking at the dead person. It is permissible to kiss the deceased because Sayyidina Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu kissed the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But that usually takes place or should take place before the body is shrouded. For us, the shrouding is that you cover the entire face, and then it's the wrap is above the head and below the feet. So there is no. It's not a halal haram thing, but it's not proper. Let's say it's not proper etiquette that after we've washed and shrouded the body, that we unshroud the body to look at it. So I think the protocol that you've laid forward makes the most sense. Whereas, there's no pre-existing request from the family and time. We do have serious time constraints because even the nearest cemetery is still quite a drive for us. And as you know, the cemeteries have their own rules in our area when we can go and when we can bury and whatnot, and we have to abide by them. And sometimes in the winter, we even combine Asr with Dhuhr if we're in the mosque praying the Janazah prayer, because we know that by the time we get to the cemetery, we won't even have time and place to pray Salatul Asr. So, because the day is so short. So I think that this is something that requires education, and just because something is permissible, it doesn't mean that we're going to do it. So I'm not going to say it's haram, but I'm also of the opinion that we shouldn't do it, because if you give one permissibility now, then it's just going to become like a drug, and everyone's going to want to do the same thing, and it becomes like a new thing. And that's how bid'ah can kind of come in to our conduct. So in this case, I think our response was appropriate, and I think we should educate people that takes place before the shrouding. And then what we need to do for the deceased is pray for them, upon them, the janazah prayer, and get them buried. That's how we honor the deceased, not by seeing them. Me wanting to see the deceased is for me. It's my nafs that wants that. But that's not what the right thing is for the deceased. The deceased is they need to be taken care of. So I know that at the time of a janazah is not the time to have a dispute with people. I mean, so I too agree that we should be comforting to people and more merciful. But yeah, I think that I can see that this might become a problem, and we should be very clear, I think, in how we word the service that we provide.
Sure. Thank you so much. Very clear.
Thank you, Brother Mohsen. And that was Brother Mohsen's also polite way of telling me I need to get moving on the fatwa thing, which I got that. I know I need to do that.
You're being too polite to me.
No, I mean, I've just really been since before Ramadan. I have this like one little it's not little, it's a big issue that I've been dealing with, and it just really takes up all my time sometimes. Some weeks it's just very draining. But I'm gonna get to it, inshallah. I'm gonna get to it, inshallah. I have started a basic outline, and we'll get a basic website going, inshallah. I'm assuming there are no other questions. Speak now or forever hold your peace. Well, actually, this is a good time to end because I think I only have like 20 minutes until Salat al-Fajr, which is because Egypt just changed the time the other day. I have 25 minutes. So I want to pray a couple rak'ahs before Fajr, inshallah. And I hope everyone has a good weekend. Stay safe, and we'll see you back Tuesday for the open Q&A sessions. Please do send your questions. I don't want to discourage you from doing that, but I'm just acknowledging that I still got a huge list. The last list was like 80 questions, so I mean, I was not able to get through all of them. And just to be respectful to the previous people that sent questions, I want to answer those first. But do send your questions. They're compiled and tallied, and I keep a record of them, and I keep going with them. If there are no other issues, then I'll make dua for everyone, inshallah. And you also make dua for me. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina wa Mawlana Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. اللهم صل أفضل صلاة على أسعد مخلوقاتك سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم عدد معلوماتك ومداد كلماتك كلما ذكرك الذاكرون وغفل عن ذكره الغافلون. See you all soon, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.